Yeah, Cole said. Did you ever think you'd be rescued? He paused. No. I thought that was the end. But something inside kept pushing me to keep going. I didn't know if anyone would find me. I just didn't want to die lying down. Rael nodded. I thought the same. When I was stuck under the wreckage, I told myself it was over. Then you came. Cole glanced at her. And now you're walking. She smiled faintly. Thanks to you. They walked for a while longer. Rael stopped to catch her breath near a fallen gunship. Cole watched the skies, checking for movement. Then she asked, Do you ever think this war will end? Cole sighed. I hope so. But wars don't stop just because people get tired. Someone has to change first. Do you think your people will ever see mine as more than enemies? I don't know, Cole said honestly, but I think it starts with small things. Like this, you and me. Rael looked down. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad you found me. He smiled. I'm glad I found you too. They kept moving. As the sun reached its peak, the heat increased. Dust blew across the land, making it hard to see. They stopped beside a large rock formation to rest. Cole sat down and pulled out his water pouch, handing it to her first. She took a small sip, then passed it back. He leaned against the stone wall and looked up at the sky. I miss Earth, he said suddenly. Rael turned to him. What's it like? Cole smiled. It's blue. Really blue. The sky, the oceans. There's green everywhere too. Trees, grass, forests. It smells fresh after rain. It's loud sometimes, with cities and people, but it's peaceful too. Rael listened closely. Sounds like a dream. What about your world? He asked. She paused. My world is cold. The buildings are tall and silver. The air is thin. Everything is built for function. No trees, no flowers. Just structure. Do you miss it? I'm not sure, she admitted. I don't think I ever felt like I belonged there. Cole looked at her carefully. Then maybe you belong somewhere else. She met his gaze. There was no judgment in his eyes. No fear, just something warm. For a moment, the war felt far away. Night was falling again. They decided to camp beside the rocks until dawn. Cole built a small heat unit to keep them warm. As they sat beside it, Rael finally asked the question that had been in her mind all day. Why do you trust me? He looked at her. Because you haven't given me a reason not to. That's it. That's enough. Rael didn't reply. She didn't need to. Her heart felt something it hadn't felt in years. Peace. As the stars appeared above them, two soldiers sat together. Different species, different pasts. But now, in the dark, they were just two people sharing a quiet night, waiting for the next step. Together, Cole woke to the sound of distant humming. He sat up quickly, scanning the dark landscape. Rael stirred, her hand instinctively reaching for the broken blade. She still kept at her side. What is it? She whispered, her voice low. Drones, Cole muttered. He motioned for her to stay quiet. The sound grew louder, faint but distinct, a mechanical whine that signaled they were no longer alone. The two of them crouched low behind a cluster of rocks. Cole adjusted his helmet scanner, searching the horizon. A faint red glow appeared in the distance, moving steadily closer. They're sweeping the area, Cole said. They must have picked up our tracks. Rael's heart pounded. Her injuries weren't fully healed, and she knew she couldn't run far. What do we do? Stay hidden, Cole said firmly. If we move now, they'll spot us for sure. He reached into his gear and pulled out a small device, an old signal jammer. It wasn't much, but it could distort their exact location for a short time. He activated it, and the faint hum of the jammer joined the low drone sounds. Minutes passed, each one feeling like an hour. The glowing red light moved closer, then paused. The drone hovered, its sensors scanning the ground. Cole gripped his rifle tightly. though he knew firing it would be a last resort. Riel felt her breathing quicken. She had been trained for combat, but this was different. She wasn't at full strength, and she wasn't used to relying on someone else. But Cole seemed calm, focused. His presence, strangely, gave her a sense of safety. Finally, the drone's light began to drift away, moving further south. Cole waited until the hum faded completely before relaxing his grip. He turned to Riel, his face serious but calm. "Looks like we're safe for now," he said quietly. Riel nodded, though her heart still raced. How did it not see us? Cole held up the jammer. "Just a bit of old tech. It scrambles their signals, makes us look like part of the background." "Clever," she said, genuinely impressed. He smiled faintly. "I learned a few tricks over the years." The sky above the planet Virex was filled with black smoke. The ground was covered in broken machines, shattered weapons, and fallen bodies. The battle had ended hours ago, but the silence that followed was even louder than the explosions. The war had moved on, but not everyone did. Among the burned metal and cracked earth, a figure barely moved. She was a Zilari scout, one of the fast-moving alien warriors known for their sharp reflexes and strong senses. Her armor was cracked, one of her legs was twisted, and a deep wound ran down her side. Her name was Riel. She opened her eyes slowly, dust falling into them. Her body was weak, and the pain was heavy. Her fingers twitched as she tried to reach for her comlink. It was broken. She pressed a small red light on her wrist, an emergency signal that meant injured but alive. "Come get me." But no answer came. No one was coming. She waited, breathing slowly. Minutes passed, then hours. Her people had left. Maybe they thought she was dead. Maybe they just didn't care. Zilari culture was strict. If you were weak, you were seen as useless. She had failed in the mission, and now she was forgotten. Riel tried to sit up, but her muscles screamed in pain. She fell back again, tears welling up in her eyes. She had never cried before. Not in training, not in war. But now, under the silent sky, she felt something break inside. Was this how it ended? Not in battle, but alone. Then she heard something. Footsteps. Slow, careful footsteps, moving over the debris. Heavy boots crunched broken stone. Riel's heart raced. Was it one of her own? Another Zilari scout? Or worse, was it a human? She quickly reached for the small blade hidden in her belt. Her hand shook. She had little strength left. If it was an enemy, she would fight, or at least try. The figure came closer. Through blurred vision, she saw him, a human soldier. His armor was dark green, scratched and dusty. A gun was slung over his back, but he wasn't aiming it. His eyes scanned the ground until they locked onto her. Riel froze, expecting him to raise his weapon. But instead, he dropped to one knee. He didn't speak at first. He just looked at her. Then he carefully removed his helmet. A human face, tired and a bit younger than she expected. Short, dark hair, a scar on his cheek. His eyes were calm but alert. "You're still alive," he said quietly. Riel said nothing. Her throat was dry, and she couldn't find the words. She watched him, unsure of what he wanted. "I'm not here to hurt you," he added, setting his helmet down. He pulled out a water pouch and slowly offered it. Riel didn't move. "You can drink. I didn't poison it." She blinked, then reached out, her hand trembling. He helped her hold it up, and she took a few sips. The water was warm, but it felt like life returning to her. He then checked her wounds. His touch was gentle but fast. He opened a small human medical kit and sprayed something cool on her injury. It stung, but then the pain faded slightly. Riel looked at him with confusion. Why was he helping her? Humans and Zilari had been fighting for years. They were enemies. This human should have left her, or worse. "Why?" she finally asked, her voice weak. He looked at her and gave a small smile. "Because you're hurt, and no one should die alone. She didn't know what to say. No one from her own squad had come. No Zilari had even looked back. But this human, a stranger, was carrying her now, lifting her with careful arms. "My name's Cole," he said, adjusting her weight over his shoulder. "You're lucky I got lost." Rael wanted to laugh, but it came out as a cough. Lucky. She was broken, abandoned, and rescued by someone who should be her enemy. It didn't make sense. As Cole walked toward the broken hills, Rael's eyes slowly closed again. For the first time since the battle ended, she felt something strange in her chest, something like hope. The sun on planet Virex was fading, casting a red glow across the broken land. Cole moved quickly, holding Rael across his back. She was light, but her armor added weight. Still, he didn't complain. Every step was careful. Enemy drones sometimes circled the area after battles. He didn't want to be spotted. He kept his head low and his eyes sharp. His boots stepped over crushed metal, scorched stone, and burned flags. He wasn't supposed to be here. His squad had pulled out hours ago. A wrong turn during the retreat left him stranded. But maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe fate had led him to her. Rael stayed quiet. Her head rested against his shoulder. She wasn't fully asleep, but she didn't speak either. She didn't have the strength to fight him, or to ask why he cared. After a long walk, Cole spotted a half-collapsed bunker built into a rocky hill. It was old, probably from the early days of the war. It would do. He pushed open the rusty door and stepped inside. The air was dusty and cold, but it was safer than outside. He set her down gently on a broken bench and took a moment to breathe. His back ached, and his legs were tired. But the look on her face made it worth it. She was still alive. Cole lit a small lamp and pulled out his rations. He placed a sealed food bar beside her. "You should eat," he said. Rael opened her eyes slowly. She looked at the food, then at him. Her lips barely moved. "You don't have to do this." He gave a small shrug. "I know." "Why?" Cole leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. "Because it's right. Just because we're from different sides doesn't mean we have to be enemies all the time." Rael stared at the food bar. Her people would never do this. If a Zilari found a human soldier wounded, they would leave him, or worse. Helping an enemy was seen as weakness. But this human, this soldier, he didn't seem weak at all. "I failed my mission," she whispered. "That's why they left me." Cole raised an eyebrow. "You were just doing your job. Same as me. But they left me. They didn't even check." Cole was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That's not on you. That's on them." She blinked, surprised by how calm his voice was. It didn't have anger or hate, just understanding. Cole moved to her side and started checking the wounds again. "This bandage needs to be changed. I don't have much, but it'll help for now." Rael watched as he worked. He cleaned the wound, wrapped it, and used a spray that stopped the bleeding. It stung a bit, but she didn't flinch this time. "You're a soldier," she said softly. "Yeah. Not a medic." He smiled a little. "I learned fast. You kind of have to when you're always patching up your friends." There was silence again, but it wasn't uncomfortable, just peaceful. After a while, she asked, "Why do you fight?" Cole looked up. "Because I have to protect my people. Same reason as you, I guess." "Then, why help me?" He thought for a moment, then answered, "Because if we stop seeing each other as people, we've already lost." Rael didn't answer, but something in her chest felt heavy. She wasn't used to hearing words like that. Her training never taught her about kindness, only rules, ranks, and missions. Cole handed her a small flask of clean water. "Try to drink more. We'll need to move again in the morning." She took a sip and nodded slowly. As the night deepened, Cole stood by the bunker entrance, watching the skies. Rael rested on the bench, her eyes half open. She watched him standing there, alone, silent, alert. He could have left her. He could have saved himself the trouble, but he didn't. Maybe humans weren't like the stories told by her people. Maybe there was something different about them. Or maybe it was just him. For now, all she knew was this. She was alive because a human made a choice, not to fight, but to care. The bunker was cold and quiet. Cracks in the walls let in the soft blue light from Virex's moons. Cole didn't sleep much. He sat with his back against the wall, holding his weapon across his lap, just in case. Outside, the wind howled across the empty battlefield. Riel rested on the bench, her armor pieces removed from her legs and arms. Bandages wrapped her wounds. Her breathing was slow and steady now. Cole had done everything he could with the supplies he had. A few hours passed. She stirred, her eyes opening to the dim light. "You didn't sleep," she said. Cole looked over and gave a small smile. "Didn't feel like it." "Because of me?" "No, just have it." He got up and moved quietly around the bunker. He opened a small bag and pulled out a few dried food bars. He broke one in half and offered it to her. "It's not the best, but it's better than nothing." Rael hesitated, then accepted it. The food was dry and tasteless, but she didn't complain. It gave her energy. That was enough. "Do you always help strangers?" she asked between small bites. "No, just the ones left behind," Cole said. "I know what that feels like." Riel looked at him. "You've been left behind too." He nodded slowly. "Once. On another planet. My team thought I was dead. I wasn't. I crawled out of the rubble by myself and walked for 3 days before they found me." Her gaze softened. "And you still came back to the army?" "Yeah. I didn't blame them. War is fast. Mistakes happen." She looked down at her hands. "My people didn't check. They didn't even scan the field." Cole sat beside her. "That's not your fault." Riel was quiet again. Her heart felt heavy, but also strangely light. This human didn't act like an enemy. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't angry. He listened, helped, and spoke with honesty. She looked around the bunker. Old crates were stacked in the corner. Some had been broken open long ago. The wall screens were dead, and the metal floor was cracked in many places, but it felt safe, like a pause in the war. "How long do you think we can stay here?" she asked. "Not long," Cole said. "Drones usually sweep this area every 2 or 3 days. If they find us, we're both done. Then where will we go?" "There's a canyon about 4 kilometers south. If we can make it there, there's a hidden outpost. It might still have supplies. Maybe even a working signal unit." Rael gave a weak nod. 4 kilometers. I can walk. A little. We'll go slow. I'll help you." She looked at him. "Even though I'm an alien." Cole gave a small chuckle. "You're not just an alien. You're a person. And you're not shooting at me, so that's a plus." A faint smile touched her lips for the first time. It felt strange but nice. They spent the rest of the night in silence. At one point, Cole took out a small photo from his pocket. Riel noticed it and tilted her head. "Who's that?" "My sister," he said. "Back on Earth. She's probably worried. She looks kind." "She is." Riel closed her eyes again. "You humans, you care a lot about each other. Don't your people?" She took a long breath. "Not in the same way. We care about our roles, our missions, our leaders. But emotions, they're considered a weakness." Cole shook his head. "Emotions aren't weakness. They're what make us human. Or alive." Riel opened her eyes and looked at him. In that moment, she realized something. This human soldier, who should have been her enemy, had shown her more kindness than anyone else in her life. The wind outside picked up. The bunker creaked, but it held strong. Morning would come soon. And with it, danger. But for now, inside the ruins, 2 soldiers from different worlds sat together. Not as enemies, not as threats, but as survivors. The next morning arrived quietly. Pale sunlight pushed through the cracks in the bunker walls. Cole was already up, packing what little gear they had. His eyes stayed sharp. The longer they stayed, the greater the risk of being found. Riel sat up slowly. Her wounds still hurt, but they weren't as bad as yesterday. The human medicine had helped more than she expected. She looked at Cole, focused and calm. He seemed to be thinking ahead, planning every step. "I can walk," she said quietly. Cole glanced back at her and nodded. "Not fast, but we'll take it slow." He handed her a long metal stick he had found in the ruins, something to use for balance. She took it and stood up carefully. Her legs wobbled, but she didn't fall. Cole gave her a small look of approval. "You're stronger than you look." Riel smirked just a little. "You're not the first to say that." They left the bunker just as the wind picked up again. The sky was gray now, and clouds hung low. The land ahead was dry, cracked, and covered in the remains of battle: crushed drones, burned tanks, broken armor. It was a graveyard of machines and war. Cole led the way, walking beside her to catch her if she fell. The journey was quiet at first. They moved slowly across the empty field, heading toward the southern canyon. But after a while, Rael spoke. "You said you've been left behind before." They both sat back against the rocks, the tension slowly easing. Rael looked at him, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Why didn't you just leave me when you heard the drones?" she asked. "You could have escaped on your own." Cole glanced at her, then shrugged. "That's not how I do things. Even if it put you in danger. Danger's part of the job." She stared at him for a long moment, then said softly, "I don't understand humans." Cole chuckled. "You're not the first to say that." They remained quiet for a while, the faint light of the distant drones completely gone now. Cole stood and checked his gear. "We need to keep moving," he said. "The canyon's not far now. Once we get there, we'll have better cover." Riel struggled to her feet. Her legs still ached, but it held. She leaned on the metal stick Cole had given her, determined not to slow him down. "I can manage." They set off again, sticking close to the rocks for cover. The night was cooler now, and the wind had died down. Every now and then, Cole stopped to scan the horizon, making sure the drones weren't doubling back. Riel used the time to study him. His movements were efficient, practiced. He carried himself with a quiet confidence that was unfamiliar to her. The soldiers of her world didn't act this way. They followed orders without question, worked in strict units, and never made decisions on their own. Cole, on the other hand, seemed to trust his instincts. "You've done this before," she said after a while. "Survived on my own." "Yeah, a few times. No squad, no orders." "Sometimes you don't have a choice," he said. "When you're alone, you learn fast, and you figure out what really matters." "What really matters?" she asked, genuinely curious. Cole glanced at her. "Staying alive, for one, and doing the right thing." "The right thing," she repeated. It wasn't a concept her people talked about often. In her world, there was only the mission, no morality, no personal judgment. She wondered what it must feel like to make choices for yourself. They reached a narrow ridge overlooking the canyon. Below them, the terrain was uneven, filled with jagged rocks and small caves. Cole pointed toward one of the larger openings. "We can rest there. It'll be hard for the drones to spot us, and we can plan our next move." Riel nodded. "You seem to have everything figured out." "Not everything," Cole admitted. "But I've learned to keep moving forward, no matter what." She looked at him again, this strange human who had risked his life for her. He wasn't just a soldier. He was something different, something she couldn't quite put into words. For now, she simply followed him, trusting that he knew the way. The canyon walls loomed high on either side, their sharp edges cutting into the pale sky. The path was narrow, forcing Cole and Rael to move single file. They didn't speak much. Every sound seemed to echo in the still air, making them both uneasy. Cole led the way, his rifle slung across his back. His eyes scanned every shadow, every turn. Riel followed behind, leaning slightly on her metal stick. She had regained more strength, but her wounds weren't fully healed. Each step was a reminder of the battle she'd barely survived. After hours of walking, they reached a small outcrop that overlooked a jagged valley. Below, half hidden among the rocks, was the outline of an old supply outpost. Its structure was weathered and broken, but it was still standing. "There it is," Cole said, pointing. "If the comm unit still works, we might have a chance." "A chance for what?" Riel asked, her voice soft. "To send a message," he replied. "A warning. Maybe even a call for peace." She frowned. "You think that's possible?" "After everything that's happened." Cole glanced back at her. "I have to try." They carefully descended into the valley, moving from rock to rock. The outpost came into view, its walls cracked, its roof partially collapsed. The entrance was sealed, but Cole found a side hatch that had been pried open long ago. He stepped inside first, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. Riel followed, her hand on the hilt of her broken blade. The air inside was cold and stale. Dust covered every surface. Broken crates and empty fuel canisters were scattered across the floor. But in the far corner, a console blinked faintly, a single green light. Cole walked over and wiped away the dust. The screen flickered, showing static before stabilizing into a rough interface. He tapped a few buttons, his brow furrowing as he worked. "Can you really send a message?" Riel asked, standing behind him. "If the transmitter's still connected," Cole said. "It's old tech, but it should reach a wideband frequency." "And who will hear it?" "Anyone who's listening," he replied simply. She crossed her arms, leaning against a nearby crate. "You humans, you always think you can fix everything." "I don't know about fixing everything," Cole said, his eyes on the console. "But we can start somewhere." He typed in a series of commands, and the screen began to display coordinates. A low hum filled the room as the transmitter warmed up. Riel watched him, curious despite herself. "What are you going to say?" Cole paused. Then he looked at her. "The truth. That we don't have to keep killing each other. That we're stronger when we work together." She raised an eyebrow. "You think your leaders will listen? Or mine?" "Maybe not right away," he admitted, "but someone will. Eventually." She shook her head. "You're either very brave or very foolish." "Maybe both," he said, giving her a faint smile. He pressed a final key, and the transmitter began to broadcast. Static crackled, then steadied into a faint, repeating tone. Cole leaned closer to the mic and spoke clearly. "This is Private Cole of the Terran Expeditionary Forces," he said. "If anyone can hear this, know that there's still hope for peace. I've seen it. I've seen what happens when two sides come together instead of tearing each other apart. We don't have to keep fighting. There's another way. We just have to choose it." He paused, then added, "You don't have to answer now. Just think about it." He ended the transmission and leaned back in the chair, letting out a slow breath. The room fell silent again, save for the faint hum of the equipment. Riel stared at him. "That's it. That's it," Cole said. "Now we wait." "For what?" "For someone to listen." She looked down at the floor, her thoughts swirling. The human she had been trained to fight. The enemy she had been told were ruthless and untrustworthy. Cole was none of those things. He was tired, determined, and strangely hopeful. "Why do you believe in them?" she asked suddenly. Cole met her gaze. "Because I believe in you." Her breath caught. She didn't know what to say. No one had ever said something like that to her before. The silence stretched between them. For a moment, it felt like the war outside didn't exist. In this broken outpost, they were just two people searching for something better. Riel finally nodded, a small smile on her lips. "Maybe you're not so foolish after all." Cole smiled back. "I'll take that as a compliment." The message was sent, but the outpost remained silent. Cole leaned against the console, the weight of his words still heavy in his mind. He knew it might take hours, maybe days, for anyone to respond, if they ever did. Raelle sat across the room, her back against a crate. She turned the broken blade in her hands, lost in thought. Finally, she broke the silence. What happens now? Cole looked up. We wait. If we're lucky, someone will pick it up and send help. And if no one comes, he sighed, then we move again. Try another outpost. Raelle frowned, her brow furrowing. You really think they'll listen to you? After all that's happened? Cole straightened, his voice steady. They have to. Sooner or later, people realize fighting doesn't get them anywhere. They'll remember that we're better off together than apart. She wanted to argue, but his tone left no room for doubt. She had spent her whole life believing humans were cruel, selfish, and dangerous. But Cole, he was none of those things. He had risked his life for her, shared his supplies, and refused to abandon her, even when it would have been easier. That didn't make sense, and yet here he was. They waited in silence for what felt like hours. The hum of the transmitter was the only sound. Outside, the wind began to pick up, whistling through the cracks in the walls. Raelle shifted uncomfortably. Do you miss Earth? She asked suddenly. Cole turned his gaze to her. Every day. What's it really like? He thought for a moment, then said, It's messy, complicated, but it's beautiful too. We've got oceans so big you can't see the other side, forests that go on for miles, and cities that shine all night. There's always something to fight for. Raelle tilted her head. And yet you're here. Cole smiled faintly. I'm here because I believe that someday I'll go back, and I want to make sure it's a world worth returning to. His words made her chest tighten. She wasn't used to hope. Her people had always taught her that the mission came first, that feelings were a weakness, and that survival was all that mattered. But this human soldier had a different kind of strength. It wasn't just in his muscles or his training. It was in his heart. The transmitter beeped, breaking her thoughts. Both of them turned to the console. A signal was coming through. Cole quickly moved to the controls, his fingers tapping the keys. A faint voice crackled through the speakers, distorted but clear enough to understand. This is command, the voice said. We received your transmission. Please identify yourself. Cole leaned closer. Private Cole, Terran Expeditionary Forces. I'm at Outpost 7 on Virex. I've got a wounded Zilari scout with me. She's not hostile. Repeat, not hostile. Requesting immediate extraction. There was a pause. Then the voice responded. Understood, Private. Stay where you are. We're sending a team to pick you up. Cole turned to Raelle, a small smile on his face. Looks like someone's listening. Raelle blinked. They're actually coming. Sounds like it. She didn't know how to feel. Relief, doubt, fear, it all mixed together. She had been left behind by her own people, only to be saved by someone she was supposed to hate. Now humans were coming to take them both away. She wasn't sure if it was hope or terror she felt in her chest. Will they treat me like you did? She asked quietly. Cole's expression softened. I'll make sure they do. You have my word. Raelle nodded slowly. For the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't be abandoned again. They packed their gear and waited by the entrance. The sky outside had turned a deep shade of blue as dusk settled over the canyon. The sound of engines echoed in the distance, faint at first, then growing louder. A dropship appeared, its lights cutting through the twilight. It hovered above the outpost, then slowly lowered itself to the ground. The side hatch opened, and armed soldiers stepped out. Their weapons were lowered, but their eyes were sharp. Private Cole, one of them asked. That's me, Cole said, stepping forward. He gestured toward Raelle. She's with me. She's not a threat. The soldiers glanced at Raelle, their expressions cautious but not hostile. One of them nodded. Understood. Let's get you both out of here. Cole helped Riel onto the dropship. She hesitated, looking back at the outpost. This was the place where she had been left to die. But it was also the place where a human had chosen to save her. As the hatch closed and the dropship lifted off, Riel looked at Cole. He gave her a small smile, and for the first time, she smiled back. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if her people would take her back or if the humans would accept her. But she knew one thing. She wasn't just a soldier anymore. She was someone worth saving.